They didn't go there to change the regime. They didn't go there to overthrow a dictator. They went there to arrest an international criminal indicted for drug trafficking crimes. So you took police officers with you to make the arrest. Obviously, these police officers couldn't enter another country without the help of the American war machine. And it wasn't just the American army. Along with the Delta Special Operations Group soldiers, you had FBI and Drug Enforcement Administration agents, which is the Drug Enforcement Administration.
The possible agreement that Nicolás Maduro might make with the American justice system has caused a wave of concern among various authorities across the continent. The capture of the former dictator in January 2026 during a surgical operation by the Southern Command, with support from Delta Force, opened the door to speculation about what he might reveal. The scope of this scenario goes far beyond Venezuela, reaching allied countries and governments that maintained close relations with Maduro over the years. Maduro has always been connected to a network of socialist leaders and authoritarian regimes, including Cuba, the current Brazilian government, Xi Jinping in China, the Iranian regime, and even Vladimir Putin, who benefited from Venezuelan oil in less than transparent deals. This network of international alliances turns Nicolás Maduro into a true living archive of extremely high value, capable of carrying information that could compromise entire figures and governments. Any testimony coming from the former dictator would not only be relevant, but could potentially cause deep shocks in the political and diplomatic landscape of the continent. And if Maduro speaks, would many authorities and presidents fall? Welcome to life in the barracks.
Stop whatever you're doing right now, sit down and give me your full attention during this video, because this is a bombshell that could not only take down Lula, but also the Partido dos Trabalhadores. This guy has already been used many times, even by the right, saying that he had mentioned Lula's name, but the media always came to his defense. Look, here on UOL, Hugo Carvajal did not mention Lula in his testimony to the courts in the United States. Yes, up until July of this year, which is right here, look, July 17th, he hadn't mentioned Lula's name. A story just came out, actually, several stories, and I want to make sure to show you. Showing that Carvajal said that Lula received money from drug trafficking in Venezuela and that far-left parties in Latin America were financed by drug trafficking from Venezuela. Not only Lula, but other leaders too.
Maduro risks facing life imprisonment in the United States, and that makes the possibility of a plea bargain even more concrete. So, and the chance of him revealing details about the system funded by Venezuelan cartels is causing concern among several authorities, since such information could expose international connections and compromise figures of great political relevance. Some presidents have even publicly called for Maduro's release, which can be interpreted as a sign of concern about what he might reveal if he decides to cooperate with the American justice system. Maduro's testimony could have the potential to deeply shake the global political landscape. Leaders like Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and the current Brazilian president could be mentioned in schemes linked to the cartels operating in Venezuela, widening the diplomatic crisis and putting strategic alliances in check. If these revelations are proven, the impact would be devastating, with sanctions, arrest warrants, and the drastic reconfiguration of international relations around Latin America. For years, the former Venezuelan dictator led a criminal network that involved Venezuelan military personnel, drug traffickers, and even authorities from other countries. This structure was consolidated with the Los Solis cartel and the Aragua train, organizations that, according to reports, were used to support the Chavista regime and expand its influence. And at the center of the dispute is a criminal organization, the Aragua Train.
A Venezuelan faction that spreads violence across several countries: Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, and now also Brazil.
Happy
birthday? The former director of military counterintelligence in Venezuela, Hugo Armando Carvajal, known as El Polo, has already stated in a letter to Donald Trump that Maduro is one of the heads of drug trafficking in the country and has offered to cooperate with the United States. Carvajal pointed out that the Los Solis cartel is no longer a metaphor and has become a real power structure led by Maduro and the top Chavista leadership. This revelation reinforces the seriousness of the accusations and broadens the scope of the investigations.
We found several pieces of information on these cell phones indicating that they were part of these criminal organizations in Venezuela and that they were probably still part of them in Brazil, since they were moving large quantities of weapons and drugs.
The Tren de Aragua, in turn, is said to have emerged as a policy of Hugo Chavez, who armed criminal leaders to protect the regime. This criminal practice in Venezuela institutionalized organized crime in the country, creating a network that extended beyond national borders. According to Este magazine, Carvajal listed leaders and parties that were benefited and financed by illicit resources from the Chavista regime. Among the names mentioned are the current president of Brazil, Evo Morales from Bolivia, Gustavo Petro from Colombia, and other socialist leaders.
The former head of the Secret Service of the Venezuelan dictatorship revealed that left-wing parties in Europe and also in Latin America were illegally financed by the dictators Hugo Chavez and Nicolás Maduro.
According to him, among the beneficiaries is former President Lula.
If Maduro decides to speak and can prove his accusations, many of these leaders could end up on the United States blacklist, facing sanctions and even arrest warrants. This scenario would deepen the political and diplomatic crisis on the continent. The activation of the America's Shield becomes even more relevant in light of the possibility that Nicolás Maduro might inform on authorities and reveal connections between cartels and political leaders in the region. If this happens, the reach of the coalition could go beyond direct combat against drug trafficking, also moving to capture high-ranking figures involved in illicit schemes. This scenario increases the pressure on governments that have been maintaining ties. Of the Americas. Although it was created with the main focus on fighting cartels and narco-terrorist networks, its reach could be expanded to capture regional leaders involved with organized crime. This possibility gains strength given the chance that Nicolás Maduro might inform on authorities and reveal political and financial connections linked to drug trafficking. For this to happen, Maduro would need to prove his claims. That wouldn't be difficult considering the time he sacrificed the Venezuelan people and the various relationships he maintained with authoritarian and socialist leaders around the world. If such evidence is presented, the Shield of the Americas could become an instrument not only for repressing crime, but also for political accountability, with possible arrests even of regional presidents, just like what happened with Maduro himself. At Life in the Barracks, you stay updated on everything in the military world. Leave your like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos appearing on your screen. Forward fighters, see you next time.